Dr. Freed put the arm on me and asked me to come here today. I know most of you, but I'm not sure all of you know each other, so if you could just name and occupation, if you will, or position, district, name, district.
Peter O'Hare, Assistant Superintendent, Hadley Heights.
Eric Breyer, Vice Principal, Union High School.
Eric Anderson, Superintendent, Pascack Valley Regional.
Ron Dirkso, Science, Tech Ed, and Phys Ed Supervisor in Fairlawn.
Mike Jordan, Superintendent of Maywood.
Lorraine Brooks, Principal, Riverdale High School.
Maria Nusatelli, Interim Superintendent, Holbrook.
Joanne Paramus, Supervisor, Curricular Instruction, Allendale.
Rich Cooter, Superintendent, Whitecroft.
Monica Brown, Superintendent, Charter.
Jill Mortimer, I'm the Superintendent Principal of Unaki.
Michael Barkentone, Superintendent of Mondo.
Denise Heighton, Sherry Hill, School Principal, River Ridge.
And of course, our host, Dr. Adam Freed from Harrington Park. There's a PowerPoint that I have up here. I sent it to Mike, and I think it'll be posted, if it's not posted already, for you to use. So there's no need for you to take notes on this if you like. And then if anybody's interested, I'll have my contact information up there shortly, and I'll be happy to send it to you directly if you'd like. I kind of cobbled together a number of different presentations that have been done over the past few years, because I do some stuff for our state, New Jersey Association of School Administrators. I do a little presentation every now and again for the New Jersey Association of School Business Officials. So this, if any of you have attended any of those before, some of these slides may be familiar because we cobbled them together, if you will. And it's the topic, if you will, of new trends in school finance. We can do that in about 35 seconds. Which we will do in 35 seconds. But I'm going to try to give you some other practical information that would be good to go back to your districts, and then hopefully it will talk or spark some discussion in the room here. And I would prefer stop any time, ask a question, bring up a point that you might have experienced in your own district, etc., so that we can have a more engaging kind of discussion. I will have to move to advance the presentation a little bit. This is me, just so that you have a little bit of a feel for it. Why I often get stuck to do the school finance stuff is I used to be a business administrator in Bergen County. I spent a number of years doing that, and despite my boyish good looks, I've been doing this job for about 30 years now. Just a very brief history of school funding, and strangely enough, in those 30 years, this is a small sample of all the different, if you will, school funding mechanisms that we've had to deal with over those years. If you will, my experience kind of entered right here as an administrator, and before this I was a student in the state of New Jersey, so I was kind of part of that, if you will, just by happenstance. And what's happened over time is that increasingly there's been an activism at the New Jersey Supreme Court level, which has impacted on local school districts more and more. So each one of these things, if you will, has represented another, if you will, intervention into local school districts from what would be court, if you will, sponsored stuff. This, of course, was one of the most significant landmark cases. This is Abbott versus Burke. Ted Burke was the Commissioner of Education at the time when this went into place. Abbott wasn't part of that initial filing. It was John Doe, was a student who was in the Newark school system, and then over time, as John Doe became of age, then they started using his name, Abbott versus Burke. That led to one of the most significant changes in schools, which required the state to put more money into local school districts to if you will, balance the advantages that districts that were in high socioeconomic areas had. It creates this concept of the ability to pay, and then what happened is that the state said, well, if you were a student that was in the Riverdale system, where I am the superintendent now, you have certain advantages because River Edge and Oradell are high socioeconomic areas, but just a few towns away in Garfield, they don't have the same advantages that we do. So what we're going to do is we're going to give Garfield a lot of money to help them get to the point where they're spending close to what you were spending. So if you'll pardon me, and every once in a while I get a little earthy, and I apologize if I drop the F-bomb once or twice during the course of the discussion. Some people who've been to my presentations before, they generally take...
Just like your board meetings?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Eric. They generally take a bet on the way in. How long is it going to take for him to say something inappropriate? But Dr. Freed is back there pointing at the video camera because his students, I think, are filming this.
They're great editors, though, I will tell you that. They're fine.
But anyway, if you will, when you think about Abbott versus Burke and you think about what's taking place subsequent to that, it's taken New Jersey over 40 years to really screw up the education system that we have and the school financing system that we have. And each one of these subsequent things that have come about are attempts, if you will, to correct a lot of the injustices that took place before in those systems. And of course, as you can see, you can't just throw out the old and start something brand new and continue it along. Again, these are the continuation of that. And then in the last several years, there have been 3 very significant changes to school finance, which we'll talk a little bit more about. The first issue was the 2% hard cap on school budgets. This went into, the law was signed on July 13, 2010, and it went into effect immediately. And it provided very, very few exceptions to that law. Then subsequent to that, you had the initial, the legislation that changed the Pension and the Benefits Reform Act. This isn't really a school finance thing, but it has a fairly significant impact, particularly because of the phase-in of the contribution for health benefits. Some of you, if you recall, prior to that, there was a law that said that you had to pay 1.5% of your salary towards your health benefits. And that affected a lot of the high-end earners, if you will. It was for everybody, but it affected high-end earners more than that. This law basically says, over the course of 4 years, you're going to phase in a contribution towards your premium, which is going to max out at about 35%, depending on what you earn. So, just to keep it simple, 40% obviously is not the number here, but in year 1 of your phase-in, you're paying 10% of that 40%. In year 2, I'm sorry, well, 25%. You're paying 25% of that 40. In year 2, you're paying 50% of the 40. In year 3, it's 75%.